everybody, and welcome to June 5th Trips and Traps. Andy Serling, joined by Richard Migliori.
And even though the weather isn't great today, there's no place I'd rather be, especially this week, than Belmont Park. And we've got 4 races to look at. No surprise, they're all turf races.
Yes, the turf races are where we find the most trips, and we're going to start out with the 6th race on May 30th. And we're going to talk about the favorite from that race, Favor Factor. And as you're taking a look right now at the head-on of the start, and this will be Favor Factor is breaking from the 3 position. Favor Factor, nothing goes right from the start, Richie.
No, she gets hit from both sides, and you're going to see she actually gets ping-ponged back and forth, where she really can't even get, or I should say he can't even get his balance, and basically eliminated at the start.
Yeah, and I love to get your perspective on these things, because it's easy to watch what happens and say the rider should have done this, he should have done that. But from your perspective, you've been there, you've made the mistakes, you've had things work out poorly or work out well for you. This is a situation where the horse, and you'll talk about this, drops back from the race, ends up making a premature wide move, and may have cost him the race because he actually ran very well.
Yeah, well, beaten less than 2 lengths for everything. So, but you know, in defense of Johnny Velazquez, I think what happens, and I know it's happened to me, your natural reaction when you get kind of bounced back and the horse takes himself even out of the race a little bit more, you want to slap him on the shoulder to make sure, you know, don't just quit running completely, and then the horse may overreact, and I think that's what happened here, because now this horse is pulling his way up into the picture on the outside, and I think he just kind of set him off, and the horse got a little rank.
Yeah, I mean, he runs up much, much too close, and it's interesting, the horse in the rail and those red and orange, or blue, orange and blue Rapoli silks actually ends up losing the race by a head. It turns out that sitting back and the horse behind him even finishes third, Why Not Whiskey, who actually had some trouble in the race. He's out in no man's land now, Richie.
Yeah, he's out in no man's land, and you know, a rider of Johnny's caliber doesn't want to be in that spot. It's too hard to win from that spot on the turf. It's just that once the horse grabs the bridle, it's not like driving a car. You can't, you know, say, well, I'll step on the brake or let off the gas. And now you can see even here, he's still looking for a place maybe to hide a little bit because he's been caught so wide.
He'd probably like to hide somewhere off the racetrack at this point with this horse. You know, I was thinking about when we talked about Tonalist and the Peter Pan and how he had broken slowly that day, and it kind of enervated him to rush up in the race, and maybe that's a little bit what happened here. You'll see him get looped by the Rapoli horse, but Favor Factor never gives up, and he even gets a little blind switched here.
Yeah, well, the Rapoli horse had a lot of momentum, and, you know, again, you've already had so many things go wrong that you're not looking to tip out even further, and then this horse has got first run on you. And this horse ran on evenly, but without that trip, you'd have to think it's going to be right there.
I mean, can you imagine if, well, obviously if he had broken cleanly and he had settled and been able to get a fair trip, he was going to win this race. But even with the trouble, he's going to win. And this was a horse that dropped down into this race. I was surprised. I thought he might be claimed in here. Somebody else was claimed. I think Favor Factor next time he comes out, because the break wasn't his fault, Richie. It was really not his fault, and so it's not a bad sign he got left.
Yeah, but it set off the chain of events that led to that trip, and that's why the start, no matter what the distance of a race, is always important, because if he breaks clean, now the rider's just quiet on the horse. Once they get shuffled around like that and the rider has to kind of squeeze him like, hey, get in the race, that kind of sets them off.
Yeah, Favor Factor actually ran amazingly well, all things considered. We're now going to take a look at the 8th race from the same day, and this was a race where a couple of horses got blocked in the stretch, and another horse, Frage, who was the 6-5 favorite, another horse who made a very odd premature move in this race. We're going to talk about the one Divine Luck. Outside of her is the 8-horse Abbey Street. And here's Frage, who's assuming her usual customary position in the back of the pack. This was a race, didn't appear to have a ton of speed on paper, though a horse ran off, and you would think Joel Rosario could see this. And what's interesting is the horse that ends up last when he makes a premature move ends up winning the race, because that horse is the one who's out in the clear.
Yeah, and that horse got a terrific ride and a terrific trip, you know, just saving ground, saving horse, and then easing out in the clear when it came time to make the run. It's odd because the pace was legitimate. It wasn't some of these slow paces we see. You can understand a horse kind of rushing up. This was, I'm really, honestly, a little bit baffled.
I agree, especially by Joel Rosario, who seems to ride the turf as well as any rider in the country. It was a strange ride, and she's a horse that makes a very big run at the end. You see her, she's already moving up in the picture. In front of her is the one Divine Luck and the 8 Abbey Street. I think John Velazquez just got skunked here. He did the best thing he could from the rail. He got her involved in the race in a good position. He never got out. Rajiv Mirage got skunked on Abbey Street. She never got out. He had her in the right position, but I don't know why Frage is making that ride one.
I wonder if it's maybe the horse got flushed out into the clear and got in the bridle too much. It was very premature, and you can see it's just too hard to win making that run around the turn 4-5 wide the entire turn here at Belmont. And I think the inside horses that get stopped, this is a great illustration of not a bad ride, an unlucky ride, because this is the way you want to ride the turf. And if it works out, they're heroes. Obviously, it didn't work out, but that's the way to ride the turf.
I totally agree with you. And I bet Abbey Street, she was unlucky. Anybody who wants to blame Johnny on divine luck or Rajiv, you see Rajiv, he's just completely buried in there. Johnny will actually get through a little towards the inside, but it's too late. She's not running there. Frage gives up. I don't know what happened. You just don't know looking at it.
Watching this again now, and this is the first time I picked up on it, and it's about the 5th time I've watched it. Frage looked like maybe she was getting out a little bit. Maybe that's why she wound up in the clear, because it looked to me like she was hanging on the inside rein, turning for home, and maybe that's what led to all the problems that he had.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if she comes back in a relatively short time, and if she does, maybe there's an equipment change, because she's a much better filly than this. I mean, she's run some very good races.
That makes the most sense to me. That would explain why, because it was a very uncharacteristic move by Joel Rosario, but it looked to me like maybe she locked on one side of the bit and was kind of actually getting out and causing
And that's why she ran off on him.
Yeah.
Well, it's certainly a possibility, and it's nice to get that perspective. We turn our attention now to the 10th race on May 31st, and this was a maiden special weight. And I think it's interesting to watch Distorted Beauty, the winner, who will be well back in the pack, and look at the eventual 4th finisher, Winter Wish, who I thought was overbet at 7-2. After I watched this race, I thought Winter Wish might have been one of the best horses in the race. Another horse that made a wide premature move, and the winner, Distorted Beauty for Jose Ortiz, got a much more patient ride. I thought maybe the 5 Lavender Road, and I wanted your opinion on this, Richie. You'll see her. She's the 5 horse down the inside. We'll stop it in a second. She'll get shuffled a little bit. I don't think she ran well, but I think she had a little bit of trouble in here and might be a little bit better than it looks. I was wondering your opinion.
Yeah, this horse definitely got shuffled back. And there are points in the race where you want to be going forward, and it's not a time where you want to be giving up that position. Also, kind of was put in a tough position. I just don't understand why you would linger in a certain spot. You have to make a decision before you get to a certain point whether you're going to hold that position or you're going to give way to those outside horses. And he really never quite made a decision, Wilmer Garcia.
He's on the rail, and on the outside, you're seeing Winter Wish making that wide premature move. You're going to see the winner in red coming in the picture. Look where Winter Wish is, and look at where the eventual winner is. This is one where patience was so much rewarded, something you see in turf racing over and over again.
Yeah, and you can make the last run in turf racing. You don't have to be up on the pace as you turn for home. You see very often the horse making this last run get the money. Now, obviously, this horse came outside, but saved ground the majority of the turn.
Right, and you look at Winter Wish, she's actually still running. She got blind switch when the winner blew by her in the stretch, and you're going to see the 5 horse in the inside, Lavender Road, actually did a little bit of running in here. Interesting race. Winter Wish, I'd give that horse another chance in there.
Yeah, I would too, as well as Lavender Road, to be honest. The more I watch it, I've always been a strong advocate of you have to make a decision. If it turns out to be the wrong decision, live with it. But don't be complacent and let other people dictate what you're going to do.
And become a victim.
Become a victim.
Essentially. We will turn back to the last race we're going to look at. And this was a race that was quite talked about, the 8th race on Sunday, June 1st. This is a race where the 3rd fraction of 114 they'll show is inaccurate. It's really 113.1. You need to check Trackus on these stats. I want to talk about Stableford, who's actually back in last. I can't circle it from there, but it's the horse in purple in the back, outside of the horse in yellow and black. Seeing moving up here. I was trying to determine, Richie, in watching this, if there was any horse I thought really ran better than it appeared on paper. He seemed to be the one. I thought this was kind of an interesting race overall.
Yeah, I think so as well. And this illustrates to me a trip that you want to have a horse come out of. You see horses steadying in here. There was a lot of jam up.
The 4
horse really had to take up there. And I'm sure Victor Espinoza on Stableford's watching this mess in front of him, and he's maybe let me give myself an out. Just a place where I can go if something happens in front of me. And this horse winds up having kind of that wide grinding trip.
Yeah, that wide trip to nowhere, sort of. You can't win, especially when you're talking about a slow-paced race like this. And I don't think, and neither one of us are indicating we think in any way it was Victor's fault. If anything, you're suggesting that he's realizing I get away from that mess, because if I sit in there, I'm going to get in trouble. I just think he may have been the horse that ran the best, that was the most victimized.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can almost read Victor's mind here. The horse is starting to get going. He's outside. He actually took up a little bit, seeing maybe I can tuck back in somewhere, and now he's committed. There's nothing he can do but go with that outside flow.
And he really didn't run badly. I mean, this horse only lost the race by 3.5 lengths. You see him out there. He's following the eventual winner, by the way, who was a horse for Leal Stable. I guess he's Leal and Team Valor. This horse, Deep Speed, he was well meant, and he really ran. He ran his last quarter in under 22 seconds.
Yeah, he came home running, and you can just
Look
see,
at him.
you know, visually you can see he's running, and then the clock bore that out. But, you know, he had the trip where he was just covered up enough, so when he tipped out, he had that burst where, you know, Stableford was kind of hung up outside of him. And you know, it's so nice when you get that position off the break, able to maintain that position, have that horse running into your hands, and know, boy, when I get daylight, it's all over.
Yeah, no, you know, it reminds me of the race that we were talking about last week when you were showing Junior Alvarado getting cover, and you got flushed out of the cover and lost it. This horse was able to maintain that cover and had his burst at the end of the race.
Yeah, because it keeps them off the bridle, and when they can just save that little bit more energy, that gives you that big pop.
Well, that does it for our races this week on Trips and Traps. We've got a big week, Belmont week. We certainly can always use your help. Trips and Traps at NYRAinc.com.